She could scarcely notice the rasp of her own breath, shallow, uneven, like wind slipping through fractured glass. The world burned around her. Smoke coiled through splintered trees, threading between mangled shuttle debris and warped plates of scorched alloy. The soil beneath her body hissed with lingering heat. Far above, the twin moons of Zuran 9 flickered in and out, their ghostly light strangled by ash and flame. LRA had given up trying to stand. One leg was ruined. Plasma had seared clear to the bone. Her side ached like it had been brushed by a falling meteor. She blinked slowly, her long, tapered ears twitching once as they caught far-off noises. Distant voices. The grind of metal. Something heavy pushing through rubble. She hoped it was death. Death, after all, was punctual. Her fingers twitched toward her sidearm. Gone. Of course. Her last memory was calling for evac and hearing nothing back. Her people had left. Retreat protocol. Clean extraction. She hadn't made the manifest. Not anymore. With effort, she turned her head. Fire licked at the shattered hull of the scout transport, casting strange shadows on the cracked glass dome nearby. Inside, something shifted. Not tall and lean like a Carolyn, nor broad and hulking like the Ixer hounds that fed on the dying. Two boots crunched toward her. The armor was mismatched, standard human issue, streaked with dirt. The figure moved with a limp, cradling an absurdly outdated rifle. She let out a faint hiss. Of all things to find me, why him? The man crouched beside her, visor reflecting the flicker of the flames. You look awful, he said, voice muffled by a calm, crackling calm. But hey, so do I. She blinked, unimpressed, as he removed his helmet. Human male, likely mid-30s. Dark, disheveled hair. Face streaked with grime. Eyes too alert for someone stranded this deep in enemy space. Name's Elias. I'd shake your hand, but yours looks kinda crispy. She tried to speak, only blood came out. He dug into his pack and produced something that looked like a protein bar crossed with industrial sealant. No offense, but you're leaking worse than a busted coolant line. You eat this or I jam it in. Doctor's orders. He wasn't a doctor. He didn't look like he'd ever sat through a first aid course. And yet here he was, kneeling in mud beside an enemy, trying to save her with sarcasm and a questionable snack. Why? She rasped at last, lips cracking. Her translator implant buzzed to life with a faint spark. His smirk faded. Because no one else would, he said simply, sliding an arm beneath her shoulders. Now shut up, or I'll start singing. And I warn you, my space cowboy blues has started wars. She wasn't light, not in armor, not with betrayal weighing her down. But he carried her anyway, stumbling, cursing, tossing out half-jokes like they were fuel. Every step away from the crash site felt like defiance. Against logic, orders, and everything drilled into them by their species. When she slipped back into unconsciousness, the last thing she felt wasn't fear. It was the steady, human heartbeat thudding against her side, sure and calm in the smoke. And in that absurd, painful instant, she realized she might survive after all, which was, frankly, very inconvenient. LRA awoke to the sharp scent of something burnt, and, surprisingly, it wasn't her. That was new. Her eyelids lifted with effort, revealing a curved ceiling patched haphazardly with bits of reflective foil. Dim green lights blinked weakly from a generator that sounded like it was one crisis away from giving up entirely. Around her, the remains of a human recon shelter had been reshaped into what could loosely be called a medbay, though garbage fort was more accurate. You're alive, came Elias's voice from somewhere nearby. Well, that ruins my dramatic monologue. Turning her head, she spotted him crouched at a makeshift workbench built from crate lids and bent piping. He was fiddling with a gadget that sparked far more than it functioned. His jacket hung loosely off one shoulder, as if even fabric had abandoned the idea of staying put. A steaming mug sat beside him, giving off an odor reminiscent of melted rubber and bad decisions. Where? She murmured. Safe, for now. Welcome to Fort Questionable Decisions, he said, gesturing at the cramped shelter. Population, Yes, amenities. One busted heater, half a bandage, and a charming host who totally knows what he's doing. She made a sound halfway between a grunt and a laugh. Okay, maybe safe is overselling it, Elias admitted, crossing the room to hand her a small canister. Water, sort of. Don't ask about the filter. I'll just say the socks are clean now. Her fingers closed around the container. Strength was seeping back into her, slow as dawn. The burns along her side had been treated with a strange mix of human gel and Carolyn nanopam. Clearly his work. Shouldn't have worked. Yet it had. Why didn't you leave? She asked, her translator now smoothing the words. Elias scratched the back of his head. I thought about it. But then you made that really dramatic about to die face and I figured that couldn't let you go out like that. Also, I may have swiped your translator tech, so I might as well stick around and learn how to say something cool in Carolyn. Like what? I dunno. Maybe, I come in peace mostly. Or, sorry for stepping on your ceremonial egg bowl. Her lips curved in the smallest of smiles. It hurt, but it was real. Elias sat beside her, boots scraping faintly on the floor. We're about 5 clicks from where your shuttle went kaboom. Patrols are still sniffing around, but the drones haven't tagged us yet. I've got a scrambler running on that battery over there. Works fine as long as you don't breathe too close to it. She shifted with a quiet groan, ears twitching toward faint scanning pulses in the distance. They'll find us eventually. Yeah, Elias said, sipping whatever toxic brew was in his mug. But not today, and tomorrow's a problem for tomorrow. Right now, we get you mobile again. You plan to carry me across 5 clicks of hostile terrain with what? Your charm. I was thinking more along the lines of that half-busted hover pad outside, he replied. Been fixing it with chewing gum and hope. Pretty sure it'll explode on takeoff, but hey, thrill of the ride. She studied him in silence. His face wasn't like Carolyn men, softer in some ways, but stubborn where it counted. Humans, she decided, were strange. Loud, improvisational, contradictory. Yet here he was, risking himself to nurse an enemy with nothing but scraps, stubbornness, and misplaced humor. You're not what I expected, she murmured. What did you expect? He asked. A soldier. Cold. Efficient. Dangerous. Oh, I'm plenty dangerous, he said, flexing an unimpressive bicep. Just ask my old gym instructor. She exhaled, almost a laugh. Outside, the wind shifted. The forest beyond the wreckage whispered like a sleeping beast. Somewhere, war still burned. But here, for the moment, there was quiet. Rest, Elias said, adjusting the scrap blanket around her. I'll watch the scrambler. Maybe reheat rations. They're only mildly radioactive. She didn't argue. Her eyes closed, not from pain this time, but peace. In the background, Elias began humming off-key. A human tune. It was awful, but it was hers now, too. The third morning in the improvised shelter started with a bang, literally. A sharp explosion sent a plume of green smoke curling through the corner of the fort, followed by a colorful streak of human profanity and the metallic clatter of tools hitting the floor. LRA pushed herself upright, wincing at the pull in her ribs. Her wounds were mending faster now thanks to the strange hybrid gel Elias insisted on calling miracle goo, with far too much enthusiasm. Muscles still ached, but she could walk, stagger at least, and frown, which she made sure to do often whenever Elias tinkered. He stumbled out of the smoke, coughing, eyebrows faintly singed. Note to self, Carolyn power cells and Earth batteries hate each other. In fact, I think I may have just sparked an interspecies battery war. She tilted her head. Why were you combining power cells? To make coffee, he said, holding up a scorched cup. Success rate 0. Explosion rate. Higher than I'd like to admit. A chuckle escaped her despite herself. It hurt her side, but not as much as before. His grin widened at the sound. Come on. You need fresh air. I need less smoke in my lungs. Let's hobble out together. The forest had already begun reclaiming the crash site. Vines coiled around splintered hull panels. Strange blue moss shimmered faintly over rocks like frost. Alien moonlight filtered through pale leaves that curled inward at their passing. Zuron 9's ecosystem adapted quickly. Stay still too long and the trees might start offering unsolicited advice. They stopped at a place where a section of the shuttle had folded into a natural arch, forming a partial cave. Elias had cleared a seat from a bent slab of metal and strung a line of tin scraps above it. His security alarm. "Does it work?" she asked. "It sings a little when someone walks through," he replied proudly. "Technically, that's an alarm." Settling in, he pulled a cracked datapad from his pocket. "Found something you might want to see." He tapped until a distorted image flickered to life, a transmission warped by planetary interference but unmistakably meant for her. A female voice spoke hurriedly in Carolyn, static and distant shouting in the background. LRA's back straightened. "That's my sister, Nara." "Didn't know you had one," he said, watching her reaction. "She's command now, tactical specialist. Cold like a ship's hull, but loyal." The message cut in again. "If you're alive, we are coming. Signal the beacon. Coordinates locked. Hold on." Then silence. Elias placed the pad between them. "Looks like rescue's on the way. That's good, right?" Her gaze lingered on the treetops, as though the answer might be written in glowing leaves. "I'm not sure," she whispered. He filled the pause with his multi-tool, humming something that was either meant to be calming or proof that a drone was dying nearby. "You know," he said after a beat, "if your people are like mine, showing up too late is kind of tradition, like arriving at a party after all the good snacks are gone. This is a rescue, not a party. Could be both. I brought snacks." She shook her head slowly, ears twitching at the motion. "You joke so much. Why?" "Because seriousness gets heavy," he replied. "And we're already carrying enough weight as it is." She studied him for a moment longer. Not as an enemy, not even as an oddity, but as a man who had stayed when he could have walked away. Back in the shelter, they worked in companionable quiet. LRA patched a roof leak with scavenged paneling, while Elias reassembled the failed power unit, using the least flammable materials they had: string, plastic, and pure overconfidence. Later, under the first stars, she whispered, almost too softly for her translator to catch, "Thank you for not letting me die." He glanced up from his wires, eyes glinting. "Don't thank me yet. Wait until I burn the place down trying to make toast." She didn't smile, but she didn't stop him either. The fourth dawn arrived under an unsettling hush. No birdsong, no leaf rustle, not even the faint crackle from the half-dead campfire Elias had proudly built out of the most unstable sticks in the forest. Even the moss seemed to be holding its breath. LRA crouched near the shelter's entrance, long ears angled forward like signal dishes. Her eyes scanned the mist that wove between the tree trunks, silver threads drifting unnaturally. "Not fog. Recon-class dispersal mist," she muttered. "High-altitude drones. Cloaked. Efficient. Ruthless. They're back?" Elias asked, not panicking, just chewing the last of a protein bar, apparently vanilla tar flavored, and leaning over her shoulder to peer out. "Good back or bad back?" "Very bad back." "Well, that clears that up. Time for, what plan are we on?" "I lost count after G. This is Plan H," she said flatly. "H for hide and hope, right? The drones are probably emotionally unstable anyway." She almost smiled as she switched on her scanner. 2 drones sweeping wide, triangulating signals. The scrambler was failing, Elias's bubble of invisibility held together by duct tape, sarcasm, and an old harmonica he swore was vital to the circuitry. "Help me reroute the feed through the hull mesh," she said, already moving. Her limp slowed her, but her strength had mostly returned. "Come on, you glorious piece of junk," Elias muttered at the wires, like chanting might coax them into working. Then she caught it, a flicker in the corner of her vision. The old Carolyn distress beacon, the one she had refused to activate, had lit on its own. Autonomous trigger. Proximity override. Someone from her species was within 40 meters. She dove for it, shutting it down with a flurry of fingers. Ground scouts, she hissed. Oh good. Wait, not good. If they find me with you, they'll assume you're holding me hostage, or corrupting my noble alien morals with bad jokes and questionable cooking. Gotcha. Not good. The forest pulsed with distant drone hum. Elias slung his pack over one shoulder. I'll go, he said. She blinked. What? I'll lead the drones away. You stay hidden. Signal your people when I'm out of range. Boom, happy ending. That's not a plan, that's suicide. Maybe, but you live. He was already fastening a strip of bright thermal tape to his chest. They'll see me from orbit. Perfect, he grinned. She grabbed his arm. You'll die. His calm didn't waver. Maybe, but you won't. And I like that better. Something in her hesitated. Then, before she could question it, she unclipped her personal beacon, a crescent-shaped device, and pressed it into his hand. It pings every 30 seconds. Head west. The terrain's jagged, drones hate uneven ground. You sure? I'm sure that if you sing while you run, I'll shoot you myself.
No promises.
Moments later, he was gone. Swallowed by the mist, beacon pulsing faintly in his hand. She stayed behind, heart hammering with a rhythm that wasn't fear so much as something far more inconvenient. The forest was silent again, but this time it wasn't peace. It was waiting. Hours later, the drone signals drifted west into interference, but the beacon's pulse stopped, too. Her fingers flew over the scanner's controls, boosting range, overriding safeties. Nothing.
No ping. No Elias.
She didn't hesitate, grabbing her half-charged weapon and a satchel, barely noticing the limp as she pushed into the dense western forest. The air thickened with bioluminescent pollen clinging to her skin. The trees bent in unnatural shapes, reacting to her passing. She found the first sign, a drone carcass, its systems fried by a concentrated human power burst. Beacon tech. Reckless. Clever. Entirely him. Following a trail of crushed foliage, she reached a moss-covered boulder. Elias was slumped against it, one hand pressed to his bloodied side, the other clutching the beacon's scorched remains. His eyes cracked open. Hey, he rasped. Either I'm hallucinating, or you look mad I'm alive. I am, she said, dropping beside him. Because now I have to yell at you instead of mourn you. Called it? He murmured, red-stained teeth flashing faintly. She jammed a stim injector into his neck. Color began returning to his face. You're lucky, she muttered. 2 centimeters higher and I'd be dragging a corpse instead of a sarcastic idiot. Oh, you do care. I'm just too tired to train another human, she replied flatly. The stars began winking through the canopy above them as she helped him to his feet, his arm heavy over her shoulder. Let's get back, she said. To the flaming shelter with toxic coffee? Yep, it's home now. They limped back together, half laughing, half grimacing, like 2 halves of a battered shuttle barely keeping airborne. By the time they staggered back into the shelter, dawn's edge was bleeding into the sky. LRA kept her arm braced firmly around Elias's waist, even as he mumbled about earning a medal for most dramatic injury while being noble and dumb. She guided him to the bench and immediately began laying out the med tools. Her hands moved faster now, more certain. She no longer hesitated at human anatomy or over the hybrid salves they'd been improvising. Elias hissed as she peeled away the shredded jacket. I really liked that coat. It was awful, she replied. You looked like a traveling rug merchant. Stylish, he corrected. Rugged. She ignored him. The plasma graze along his ribs was deeper than it had first appeared. I'm fine, he offered, watching her frown. Just a little smoldering. Shut up. The foam applicator hissed as she sealed the wound, nanobots knitting tissue layer by layer. By the time she finished, sunlight was spilling faintly through the cracked walls. The outside world was still hostile, but inside, they had a pocket of calm. I've been thinking, Elias began. That's risky. Your sister's message. She's close, right? Scout teams.
Transport.
LRA nodded warily. They've probably landed. So, what happens when they find us? They'll see you as a threat, she said flatly. Even if I say otherwise. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. What if I go to them first? Try my charming idiot routine. They'll shoot you. Maybe not right away. That's not a plan. That's a death wish with a catchy title. I just don't want to be the reason they fire at you. You're not. I might be. She turned to the open hatch, arms crossed, ears twitching at the forest sounds. She hated that there wasn't a clean solution. She hated even more the thought of him leaving. There's another way, she said finally. We fake your surrender. He blinked. Oddly specific. You've been planning this since when? Since you nearly blew up our water filter. Wow.
I'm honored.
We rig a beacon. Send a distress call claiming we've captured a human. You'll be shackled, disarmed, looking pitiful. I'll tell Nara you're cooperative and useful. And you trust your sister not to shoot first? I trust her to listen. If she doesn't, I'll throw her out the airlock myself. He smirked. Family bonding. I like it. The rest of the day went into setting the trap. They gutted an old escape pod to serve as a cell, complete with fake scorch marks. Spare wire became restraints. Elias practiced looking tragically heroic. I didn't think I'd end up a space damsel in distress, he said as she locked a shackle. You pull it off, she admitted. His grin was thin, fear flickering beneath. Not of pain, but of what came next. She felt it too. Leaning in, she touched her forehead to his for a moment. If this goes wrong. It won't, he cut in. But if it does, I'll haunt your ship. Loudly. That's the worst punishment imaginable. The low hum of engines began to fill the air. They're here. The scout ship descended. Twin thrusters sending ripples through the moss and making the trees shiver. A beam of amber light sliced down, bathing the escape pod in a harsh glow. Elias sat shackled, smeared with ash and dirt, arms slack in surrender. LRA stood just outside the light, posture straight, armor cleaned as best as time allowed, crest reattached. Officer rank displayed without question, even as her heart rebelled against the uniform. The transport ramp hissed open. 6 soldiers in perfect silver formation emerged. At their head, Nara. Her features were sharper, her long ears rigid, expression carved from cold authority. Her eyes swept the scene. Wreckage, sister, human prisoner. LRA, she said evenly. You are alive. LRA gave a short nod. Recovered. I activated the beacon yesterday. You were expected alone. Circumstances changed. Nara's gaze landed on Elias. Explain. He pulled me from the wreckage, treated my wounds, hid me from drones. Saved my life twice. What does he want in return? Nothing. He refused to leave me, even under orders. The soldiers shifted. A subtle murmur rippled through them. He is human, Nara said. He is alive, LRA countered. And not our enemy. Not today. That's not your decision. In this op, my testimony grants protected custody. A tense silence. The wind rustled. The ship's light pulsed with the moment. Then Elias cleared his throat. Not to interrupt your sisterly glare contest, but these shackles? Real chafy. Nara stared at him like a faulty device, but it broke the deadlock. Unbind him. Escort both aboard. They'll answer to command together. The soldiers complied. Elias rubbed his wrists, glancing at LRA with half gratitude, half disbelief. As they boarded, the silence between them felt full rather than heavy. The ship lifted them aboard, the hatch sealing with a hiss as the engines powered up. Inside, the air was cooler, cleaner, and filled with the faint vibration of takeoff. Elias leaned close, speaking low. So what now? They'll probably put you in a cell until you learn to stop making jokes, LRA said dryly. Or maybe assign me as a cultural liaison. Or a lab specimen. Congratulations, she replied. You'd be labeled Exhibit A, unexpected human. He smirked. Guess I already am. Through the observation port, the ground began to vanish beneath haze, Zuran 9 shrinking into a scarred but still living green sphere. Elias sat beside her, his hand resting close to hers without quite touching. "You going to be okay with all this?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," she admitted. "My people won't understand how I survived, or why I didn't leave you behind. They'll think I'm compromised." Her gaze shifted to him. "I am, and I'm not ashamed." His grin softened. "Definitely more stubborn than when I found you." "You mean when you found me unconscious?" "Semantics." They sat in silence as stars unfolded around them, bright specks scattered across endless black. Somewhere far behind, the war still burned, but here, in the narrow space between two former enemies, there was something different. She glanced at him. "You once asked what I expected from a human." He tilted his head. "Yeah. My answer used to be very little." Her voice was quieter now. "But now I know better.